Nikki pull it up, or do you have access to it where you can look at it?
I think that'd be great if Nikki could pull it up. Then we're all looking at it. I have it on my laptop or my iPad, so I'm going
Okay.
back and forth.
Yeah, why don't we have Nikki pull it up then, and I'll get started. So, you know, we occasionally, typically every 2 years, we do a big full code review, but occasionally we update it, look at a particular topic and or action or trend or something. And so council had requested that we look at motorized vehicles in parks. And what was happening is that individuals had noticed people on motorcycles or quads or electric scooters. We've also had people asking us about e-bikes and some different things in the parks. And so when we went and looked at our code, it basically says that motor vehicles, you know, are allowed on roads and trails, but they can't do it on any trail unless it's been specifically designated or posted. Well, you know that it's virtually impossible. I mean, we have a sign that says that in certain areas, but it's almost impossible to post every trail at that park, right? You know, there's so many people coming and going. And so what we wanted to do, and then when we looked at the trail use, it just talks about speeds that are reasonable and prudent. So we can look at that and maybe try and provide some clarity, maybe provide some updates, and just take a look at what it says and then see if we would like to modify it. The code was written, there have been, you know, technologies that have changed. There have been, you know, the e-bikes, and there's 3 different classifications of e-bikes. There are motorized scooters, not like a mobility scooter, but, you know, like the Razor scooters. They have, you know, there's all different. And so back in 2000, and I think it was 18, there was a lot of conversation happening about motorized vehicles on paths and trails, but really it came down to, you know, the mobility devices for folks that might have problems getting in and around trails. And then that also includes ADA. And so I remember the conversation happening, but I wasn't really clear on what the outcome was. I just remember there's a lot of conversation about it. So I included the updated RCW, Revised Code of Washington, and a link to give you more details. But then I summarized it to what I thought was applicable to our conversation today. So just to make reference is that e-bikes, there's 3 classifications of e-bikes, and basically it's on how fast they go. So e-bikes class 1 and 2, which I think goes up to 20 miles an hour, they are allowed on bike paths and trails. The class C is not, and that's really because it goes up to, and it's only like 24 miles an hour. So it's not a big difference, but there's 3 different classifications of e-bikes. A moped may not be operated on a trail or a path or a bikeway. And so that is clear. And then the motorized foot scooter shall not a motorized foot can't go on a trail that's specifically designated as non-motorized. So that's a little bit not super clear. And then the mobility devices, and this is what, this is where the conversation was, is there's 2 kinds. One is an electric personal assisted mobility device, an EPA-AMD. And then there's other power driven mobility devices. They kind of all fit within the same category though. And that they basically have all rights and duties of a pedestrian. So you can't put any limitations on those particular. And that would be primarily, you know, like a mobility scooter or some of those things that people use for specifically because they have a mobility issue, not because they're trying to race up a hill on an e-bike. So I just wanted to clarify that because that is the RCW. So we need to follow along with those to make it clear. And then what I thought I would do, because those are some of the specific questions. And then what I thought I also do is provide you with what other cities and towns are doing. And I got to tell you, I think everybody copied each other's codes and then just made slight modifications because most of them were about the same. so I did the codes from different people regarding trail use. And then I also provided some definitions in case we thought we might want to modify our definitions. So first of all, that's sort of a summary of what I sent. And so it'd be interesting just to hear some thoughts or feedback from you initially. And then we can kind of talk a little more specifically. And what we did for tonight was, this is really just an opportunity to gather some information, have a conversation. If there's more research you're interested in, or if there's clarification that you're looking for from like our city attorney, then we can do that in the meantime. And then we would, our idea was, unless you come up with something tonight that you all agree on, that we would come back with a specific recommendation for you to review and approve. And then we would forward that back to council, since they're the ones that requested this review. And your response could be, leave it the way it is. Your response could be, oh, let's add some language regarding motorized things. You could link back to the RCW. Metro Parks has done that. There's lots of different ways we can do it. So anyway, just to get you started, why don't you, what do you think? What are your thoughts about that? Or what are your concerns about that?
Any comments?
I think it looks great. It actually falls in line. We've been doing some of the rails to trails throughout our states on our bikes lately. And it falls in line with what's going on those. And those represent hundreds of miles in our state of paved paths that are for pedestrians and bikes. And it's the no motor scooters and only the e-bikes that are basically assist bikes, not the ones that that'll do 30 down the trail. So I think you hit it on the nail. Hit the nail on the head.
Are there oh, keep going. Anybody else that has some thoughts?
You know, one thing that might be helpful is to add more definitions on what's a trail, what's a path, and especially the paved versus gravel natural trail. It seems like that may be missing in ours, but it's included in some of the definitions, which is pretty good. Anyway, just a general thought.
I was going to pull up, I have my computer starting back up over here. I was going to pull up our city code and just see if that was in there. Oh, you're looking, I was trying to figure out why I wasn't moving this down. That's because Nikki, you're controlling. Can you go, or are you looking up? I have a link right to our park code, so it makes it easy.
Mary, do you just want to share your page, your screen?
I can.
If you have it up already, it might be easier.
I don't have I was going to just pull it up over here and read it, but I can look it up if you want to share my screen. I mean, I have to pull it up, but that's okay. But you've got it right here, so just go down to park code. It's under definitions. See if we have it under definitions right now. In case I missed that. Yeah, facility. We don't have. Do we have trail on there? S.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Trail.
Means any path, track, or right of way designated for use by pedestrians, bicycles, equestrians, or other non-motorized modes of transportation. So, so that is the definition. Is there anything from the other definitions of trail that you think might be helpful to add? Let's see. we have so many different kinds of trails. So like some of these have, you know, graded or paved or types of materials or lack of materials. So I think keeping it as general as possible is helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that might be sufficient. So, because it does say non-motorized modes of transportation. And I think one of the key things is on here is it's designated for use by pedestrians, or it says bicycles. So, so we could add, besides equestrian, which technically you're, the only place you can use do equestrian sports Stilicum. It says pedestrians, bicycles, equestrians, or other non-motorized modes of transportation. That might be where we clarify the RCW, just because the RCW does provide a definition of those different motorized that are legal, considered non-motorized. We could refer to that as designated by RCW.
Where does the Segway come in?
You know, I didn't see those specifically referenced. I think a Segway might be listed under an OPDM.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, I would think so.
They're kind of an anomaly, but that's what they are by nature.
Yeah. Even though Segway's kind of hard to get up and down on a path that isn't paved.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it's probably okay just as it is with that definition there.
Okay. So let's go to the actual code itself, which would be motor vehicles on roads and trails. Is there a suggestion on how you think, or is there more clarification that you might need on adding to that? Because right now it kind of says, no, it says no person shall operate any motor vehicle on a trail or in any park or on a trail in any park area unless such trail has been specifically designated and posted for such use. So,
yeah.
and it says you can only use them on roads, streets, highways, parking lots, parking areas where otherwise permitted by proper posting, which is pretty much all of those different ones say.
Mm-hmm.
It is provided, however, that this section shall not apply to emergency vehicles or to maintenance vehicles or vehicles authorized by the department. So maybe at the end here is where we add the vehicles used for mobility purposes or something like that. And that way we're adding to it the what it says in the RCW.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably good.
Or we can refer to the RCW.
Yeah, maybe just referring.
Because that is going to constantly change as technology changes, and that way we don't have to keep going in and doing the code. I would think that the, so.
Yeah, that's probably good, Mary.
Find out for Alan what I'm going to say. Alan, have you seen those Segways out on your travels? On something that's not paved?
Who is that directed to, Mary?
Alan Billingsley.
Oh. Unmute my Alan.
Yeah, I didn't hear what she said.
Oh, I said, have you seen Segways on anything that wasn't paved? Have you seen?
No, heavens no. They don't do anything on unpaved because they have no clearance at all. Well, I just saw one the other day on the Foothills Trail. It made me think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. The other thing that we might want to think about adding to it is, because it is challenging to get signage in and around every trail, is that we may want to look at a mile per hour that we think is appropriate. That could be something else that you think about adding to your code. And then that way, if it is one of those slippery little fishes that slide through, because CW, it still makes them, you know, maintain somewhat of a certain mile per hour Because, you know, we do have trails like along Boulevard, that's considered a trail. We have the trails around the lake besides, you know, besides the trails that are off-road up in the area. Because sometimes we do get folks that are a little freaked out when an e-bike comes zipping around the Walhop Lake Trail.
Yeah.
Because it's different than what, you know, you're seeing with pushing a stroller, or you're, you know, pulling a wagon, or a little kid trying to ride on their trail. So that could be something else that you take a look at, is this, because it's not only just the off-road, it's those really very, very accessible. And Angle Lane, you know, Angle Lane is getting paved, so you're gonna be able to get from one to the other. It's a pretty straight line without a speed bump. So that might be something else to think about. And do you have a preference for what that miles per hour might be?
Well, somewhere I read about less than 10 miles an hour. And was that on one of the other codes? And it seemed like that would be reasonable.
A lot of the paved trails paint it in the area too, because it's a cheap way of posting it, speed limits. And you get, you know, it's cheaper than a sign, and it's not vandalizable. But I've seen a lot of 15-mile-an-hours. Green Lake is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everett has 15 miles per hour in their definition. Vito, I wasn't seeing much more than, might have been something else that you read.
Yeah.
So, but, or it might have been in our code for just in the parks, mile per hour.
Well, it says under, Everett under 15 miles an hour. So
yeah, and that's on your roads and your parks and your parking lots.
Yeah.
Probably reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably workable.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Let's see.
Any other comments, Sylvia, Ellen?
Really, the speed limit's just keeping the guys that are, you know, doing 50 miles on their road bikes off of those trails.
Yeah.
You know, when you ride that bike, you're doing 18 to 25, and so they don't do the trails, and it just keeps them off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They belong on the roads anyway at that speed normally, and they prefer
Right.
it.
Do we want to stick with a 15? Do you want to look at 10? 10's kind of a hard one to keep up when you're driving through the park. I mean, not that you don't want them, but
well, probably under 15 miles an hour is probably workable.
All right, we'll check through that and see how that, because I'm thinking that it might even be posted at 20 miles an hour in our park.
Okay.
That's just the back of my head. So I'll double check and see if that's listed in our code as well, because we'll want it to be clarified. So inconsistent, we don't want to have there be any.
Yep.
And honestly, I'll tell you honestly, the folks that are out there breaking the rules, by the time you call the police and they come there, they're probably gone. So from an enforcement, it's really to help those folks that are doing things the right way do them even better.
Yeah.
But we'll do our best.
It's like our smoking
Councilmember
rules.
Yeah. Councilmember Farmer, did you have any thoughts or feedback or any suggestions regarding that? What was sent?
Not necessarily. I think it's of interest to me. The background, my sense is that everybody has some sort of prohibition on their trails, their unpaved trails, not necessarily their paved pathways. So just depending on how they did it. I was just curious to see how everybody else did it. It seemed like we might need to catch up. So
Are you thinking we should have a designation? Should pave and unpaved trails? Do you think that that's considered?
You were a little garbled. My connection might be unstable. Try that again.
Oh, it might be me. I said, do you think that we should define or clarify between paved and unpaved trails? Are you thinking that's?
I think that's a good discussion question, for example, around Wahop Lake. I haven't seen an abundance of motorized vehicles zipping around there. Bikes are a more common sight, pedal powered, but everybody seems to be really respectful. But so if we do want to allow them, do we allow them on the paved areas? I don't know. Those trails are steep, and it would be very difficult to see some of the electric options. I've seen some of the one wheeler and some things up there, so that it might be more feasible. So I don't know. It's a very long way of saying, what do you guys think?
Maybe.
I think that's a good idea about the paved versus gravel or unpaved areas, because have we had any speed issues and looking into the future along Angle Lane, that's a perfect spot to, speed or go a little fast with strollers and with other folks walking and so on. Have we had any issues around Wohop? Wohop's pretty nice. I mean, I walk it and it seems to be pretty good, but I walk it early. Not a lot of people out there.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of complaints, so that's good. And when we do, it's usually not an ongoing problem. One of the things that we talked about early on was that we didn't want to paint a stripe down Wahop Lake trail because we didn't want it to look like a road, and that we would assess numbers of complaints and any problems before we did that. And we really haven't gotten very many. I mean, we do get folks occasionally that say, oh my gosh, I saw an e-bike, it freaked me out, but it's not been a continual problem. And like even one of the people that rides an e-bike there is a guy named Russ Smith, who was on our legacy plan board. He's a birder, bird walks out there, so he's really respectful of the site and of other people. And so he's very interested, but he's had knee surgery. So for him to be out and about, the e-bike is such a great resource for him because it gets him to the park. He can enjoy the park a lot longer in a lot more areas than he could if he just walked. So, and I think that we do have an aging population, and there are going to be a variety of mobility devices, whatever that might look like for you as a person. So we want to make sure that, we're allowing those for folks that are using them appropriately, and maybe helping the rules to say, here's how you appropriately do that, without maybe limiting their ability to be able to, visit the park as people have issues. So, and that's a long way of saying, maybe we take a look and see, if, if we need to define paved versus unpaved.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not Green Lake. I mean, with the need to pave and stripe, and people get upset. You're rollerblading on the wrong side. You're going in the wrong direction, and
and we've tried to avoid that just because we didn't want it to look and feel that way. And that is usually based on capacity, more use, and someday we might get there, but we're not there yet. So. And Nikki, you would know more because you're our first line of defense. I mean, usually you're pretty good at following those up, but are you seeing a lot of problems or hearing a lot of complaints from folks?
I've heard some complaints
beyond just.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard a few complaints about like dirt bikes on the unpaved paths, so the regular trails. So I've heard some issues with speeding through there. A lot of walkers that just aren't used to sharing the path with dirt bikes and stuff like that.
More like a mountain bike, not a motorized bike, just a mountain bike.
No, we're talking motorized dirt
really?
bikes that people are out on the trails.
Oh boy.
And I think Councilmember Farmer, you were out there and you saw something like a motorbike, right? And a quad. Didn't you see that initially?
A motorbike and a quad. Yeah, and I had not seen that before. I'd seen those little two things that you balance on, and it's got one wheel, and the guy just zips around. I've seen him multiple times. It just seems odd to me, but the really, yeah, the loud, stinky motorcycle and the quad, I'm like, that's not what this trail is for. So
Right.
that's what sparked my question. What do we want to see on our trails?
Mhm.
Okay, so I've got some good feedback talking about looking at the definition of trail and talking about possibly inserting that RCW somewhere either in the definition or in the code to give us that flexibility for when things change regarding specifically mobile, those mobilization type device, mobility type devices. I see, we'll take a look at paved versus unpaved to just see if it makes sense to add that or clarify it. It might be better to have it general, but we'll take a look at that. We'll look at miles per hour. I'm going to look at what it says in the parks and maybe what it says in other parts of our code, but we're looking at somewhere in the under 15 miles an hour just from a safety perspective. Even in our parks, driving through the parking lots, kids darting in and out and around the roads that are somewhat narrow, you know, you don't need to be going that fast. That seems like a reasonable miles per hour.
Remember, your cyclocross are going to be going 15 miles an hour.
Well, when we can permit anything, so we can write in the permit, Nikki, that you can be allowed. You know, it's just like you can blow a rocket up if I say it's okay. You can't do it naturally, but or normally, but we can permit anything. So we know some things are faster than others. So that would be the exception. You know, some runners are faster than that too.
I think that sounds good, Mary. Thank you. You want to move on to the South Sound wildlife area update? Or is there anything else on the park code? Anything else?
No, that was the only thing we were really looking at this time. The last time we did this, the park code was, I think, last year. So, and then we did look at smoking in parks last year. Might have been early this year. It's a big fog to me. But so we'll probably sometime in our next work program, 21 or 22, do another full on. Let's look through and see if there's anything goofy or if anything needs to be add code. So at this point, that's all council asked us to do.
Okay, good. Okay, South Sound wildlife area update.
Let me share my screen here. All right, are we seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we finished about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, having the Northwest Youth Corps come in and work with us on this project. We had 1 week that our Rotary paid for and another week that we got paid for by a grant. So we had this team of about a dozen young people here working for 8 o'clock till about 3 every day, working on projects assigned out here in the area. And so we've got a few before and after pictures to share with you. This will remind you of the area we're working on, and it's basically the area inside this red line, which is the major public use area in this 100-acre wildlife area. The parking area is down here, and this is also where we're developing an educational area for schools and people. This is what it looked like when we started our project. The area had fallen into complete disarray and was just a mess. The state had not funded anything here for years. That's the parking lot. And here's our team of hard workers. And I got to tell you, once again, it proved that the right man for the job was a woman, because there was all girl team except for 2 guys. And these youth worked great. The 2 leaders are both 1 year from graduating with ecological studies degrees, one in PLU and one at Western. Really good examples for these youth and how to work and get the job done. One of the things they did was they cleared all the rest of the weeds up here and next to this parking lot wall that the Rotary had built. And we're starting an indigenous garden here. So one of the things we're going to do is plant a lot of natural indigenous plants and put next to each one a little metal permanent placard that you can scan with your phone, and it'll bleep you straight to a description of the plant, tell you what it is, tell you why it's important, and tell you why it lives here. So you can kind of see how they've got that garden all cleaned up. That was about 2 dump truck loads of chips that the state had accumulated on their back lot that we hauled over and they spread out. This is the field along Phillips Road after I mowed it. And the one part of the project was also to put up a fence here, not so much to keep people out or wildlife in, but to designate this area as a public use area. And so one of the jobs they did, you can see the new fence line there, it was to stain the fence, which was about, let's see, I think we're 100 feet, no, 100 yards fence. It was, I mean, it's huge, it's long. So that's what they did every afternoon when they got tired of pulling Scotch broom. They'd work half a day doing that and then half a day staining the fence. And believe it or not, this was a break for them, kind of like the Tom Sawyer thing here. The fence has 2 breaks in it so the pedestrians can enter, but no motorcycles, because we're just like you. We want bicycles, e-bikes, strollers, and that kind of thing on this trail. It's a paved trail. It's ADA accessible. And so we want to try and encourage people to use it for what it's used. There used to be a couple of benches, like about 6 along this trail, and you can see they're not in such very good shape. So one of the things we're doing is we're putting in these brand new benches. Thanks to Mary, she showed us the best benches to get, of course. And we're putting these along the trail where they used to be and marking them, because we've got community partners that are helping us. This one went in by Rotary. We've got 2 more that are going to go in by Lions and one by Kiwanis. Those are sitting here in my warehouse waiting to go in. But you can see these young ladies had their first attempt at concrete work. But there's the bench when it's done, right on our trail. It's just an absolutely stunning place to sit, bird watch, relax, or just look out over the scenery. Normally behind that tree, you can see Mount Rainier. So you can see the trail moving off out into the prairie area of this property here. And one of the things they did was to pull some Scotch broom. There's Scotch broom everywhere. It's a constant problem of an invasive species. So we got the Parks Board 6 pullers, and they brought a couple of pullers, and they would literally pull Scotch broom until noon every day, all 10 days.
Wow.
They pulled about 2,000 pounds plus. It was 18 dump trailer loads of Scotch broom we pulled out of there. You can see some of these Gary oaks that were just completely covered by the Scotch broom. And they went in and started pulling those. This is how effective those weed pullers are. Take a look at the root on that Hummer. They pull that out, root and all. And so it's an effective way of getting rid of it. And you notice the seeds are not ready for popping open yet. So we pulled all the Scotch broom prior to going to seed. There's a picture of the pile that we accumulated. And there it is afterwards. The Scotch broom's basically eradicated, and now it can be mowed around safely and not hurt the Gary Oak savannas that they planted. There's one here that you're looking at and one off in the distance out here. Now, Scotch broom's still all over the area. There's still a lot to remove, but they did a tremendous amount of it. This is what the trail looked like. Rotaries pulled these trees up and pruned them so that people can't hide in them and they don't become homeless camps. But the grass had encroached on the trail tremendously. So one of the things we did was go along. We used my tractor and the kids' elbow muscle, and we stripped all the grass off of this trail. And lo and behold, the thing's 40 inches wide. It had gotten down to almost invisible in some places. So now this trail is about 1/3 of a mile all the way around the perimeter of this area up on the hill. So this is just some of the people that have helped us. We're hoping to add a Kiwanis logo here. And next week, Thursday, I present to Stillicum Kiwanis. And Lord willing, quick don't wise, we'll sell them a bench.
Well, that's great, Alan. That's really fantastic project.
Wow,
So
that is amazing. Can I ask you a couple?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a couple questions. First of all, your garden that you're doing with the indigenous plants and the name tags, and are you using a QR code or something? What do you?
Yes, we use just a QR code and a little picture of the plant. We're going to get one of our Lakewood Rotarians, Mark Blanger, is going to weld us up some frames. So if they disappear, you know, we're out $2 worth of materials and tell them to make another one, because that sort of thing happens. But if we produce them all ourselves, you know, we can replace them as they come and go.
Right.
We
And
planted a few things there, but really planting time, as you know, is going to be in the fall when the water starts to move.
right. So did you, who are you working with on like doing the plant identification or any of the history, or you just?
Well, we've used let's see, it's Interlochen Gardening Club has helped us some. They're welcome to, they're good on advice, but they're all 80 or whatever more. So they say, we're not going to come plant anything for you, but we'll help you figure out what to plant. And there's enough no-brainers, you know, of things that we can put out there that will fill that area before we know it. You know, salal, Oregon grape, wild roses, and the various ferns and such. Things that we want to make it so it's no maintenance, because what we don't want to do is leave a trail where there's a lot of maintenance to keep this garden up, but we'll maintain it as far as weeding. And if we get 20 different species in there for the kids to go and identify, that's about a day's worth of brain load anyway.
Another question is that how much did that fence cost you? And because that's a great fence. That's something like we might want to do in and around the cemetery at Fort Steilacoom.
It is, yeah. We spent $15,000 on that fence, and it is 3/4 of the way around where we wanted to do it. We were hoping to partner with Lakewood Rotary to get the rest of it when the COVID thing happened, and all of a sudden we got, you know, in tight budget. So next year, perhaps we'll keep working on it.
Did you contract that out or did you guys build it?
Oh, we contracted it out. Yeah, there's literally 120 fence posts put in concrete, and they came along with a machine that did that, put them in, got them in a straight line.
I was going to say it's very straight for being.
Yeah. No, volunteers could do some things. You got to know when to use volunteers and when to use the pros for things, as you well know, Mary. So.
And then it also looks like they, the wildlife folks, they just let you do whatever the heck you wanted. I mean, they abandoned it for so long, but to bring your tractor in and to just pull and push and plant, I mean, that sounds like they were pretty easy to work with.
They're really easy to work with, and they're so grateful to have the help over there. I mean, I mowed several of the fields with my big tractor because we wanted to have some fire breaks for the 4th of July and make sure it was safe. I mowed all the walking trails because frankly, when this team's over there, and you need to note this if you use them, you need somebody to kind of make sure they have everything they need to work, because you can get a tremendous amount of work out of them. But you got to have a backlog, have the equipment, have the directions, have everything set for them. So the 2 weeks they were over there, every 2 hours I'd run over and dump the trailer, and I'd mow for a while they were pulling Scotch broom to dump the trailer and get the things ready. But it was really a great deal because we got a huge amount of work for a small amount of money from them.
Great.
It was amazing. I live right around the corner, and so I got to see this go up every single day, and it's fantastic. Can we share this at council somehow?
We were scheduled to do it in September, and when council catches up, I'll be glad to share the whole project with council, a little history on the area, what we've done so far, and where we're going with it. Because this is a long-term project for our Rotary Club and for a lot of the members that are involved. We have a very diverse community group that's working on this because it belongs to everybody here in Lakewood, and it's kind of like our little jewel that doesn't really cost us much. You can't get 100 acres, just anywhere, and we don't want to let it go. We want to make sure it stays here, it gets taken care of, and it's a very unique site.
Yeah, we are on the council agenda to do an update, and it is such an amazing partnership project. And when a group of people just want to get something done, you're in there, no bureaucracy, just do it, and the outcome is awesome. So that's been an area that has just, like you said, been sort of abandoned. Nobody's really paid attention to it, but it's not city property. So we didn't, we can't take care of all the stuff we have. So it's
So
so
one of the things we are working at is to get the requirement for a discovery pass removed from that property. The head of the wildlife areas has told us that they have done it at one other property. It's been done before when the community came together and requested it from their state people. So that's on the agenda probably for 2021 or 2022, after we get the project far enough along and show that the community is embracing this area. They want it, we're using it. We want the Discover Pass requirement removed.
yeah. When you get close to that, let us know how that's working or how it works, who needs to be like a letter, because the city can help with that.
Yeah,
We've got legislative.
Absolutely. We're
and-
planning on it.
Yeah, we'll be happy to help with our folks, because it might just be a matter of getting the right person. And we also
Yeah.
have connections with state parks and those folks that are the keepers of those things. So
Yeah.
well, that's great, especially when you want it to be an educational center and bring school groups
Exactly.
in and things like that.
Yeah.
That was a great project, Alan. Really good.
It's been fun and it's got a lot to do, but it's going to be a great community asset. I think. I'm happy.
Already is.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Hey, Mary, you want to move on to American Lake Park Master Plan update?
Yeah, that'd be great. Nikki, can you share my screen?
You should be able to share it, Mary.
Oh, okay. Let's go to here. And here, I'm so good at this Zoom thing. Okay, let's go to share screen. I can push that. Oh, there we go. Great. Here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what I have to do is give you an update on American Lake. Pretty much the master plan improvements, but then also we are in the process of applying for grants to do the work. So the timing happened pretty quick in turnover, especially during this COVID time. So I just want to kind of walk you through what the final, we talked about this many months ago, but sort of get us up to date with what we're looking at. So here's the view, of course, of American Lake Park. So just, I'm going to try and I see all these pictures, so I'm going to move that a little bit over so it's not in my way what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is a site plan. And again, we did all of this internally with staff, so we didn't have to hire a consultant to do anything. So that's great. So our main goal of the plan is to provide access, ADA access to American Lake, as well as redevelop the 3 acres of the American Lake Park. So the part within red is what we're looking at redeveloping. American Lake Park itself is about 5 acres. That includes the parking lot and the boat launch. But what I'm talking about right now is within this red dotted line area. And then this is the entry where the new sign's going to go. So we're focusing on that. So just most of you will know American Lake is down here, and this is the north side of American Lake, and it's near the VA hospital off of Veterans Drive. Oops. So the goals for the project are to provide ADA access down here to the beach, new access to the site from a couple of locations. I'll point those out. We're going to renovate facilities that are there. We're going to create access for non-motorized boats like your kayaks and your canoes, and then provide additional education for visitors coming to the site. So, you can see this picture up here with this young man in his wheelchair. That was a father and son who came to our fishing event. And you can imagine how hard it was to get down there on that beach. And getting down there is a lot easier than getting out from there. So what we want to do is really make sure that everybody can come down to the waterfront and use our park. And then, of course, want to make sure that it's safe and easy to play and to swim, and then make it easier for folks to get their non-motorized boats onto the lake, as opposed to having to, interact with the boat launch, which can be kind of crazy, especially during the summer. From a renovation perspective, we're going to replace the restroom. We're going to put in a new picnic shelter. We're going to repair the retaining wall and renovate the bulkhead, and I'll share that with you in a second. We're going to look at some public education. There's a lot of things down there. Of course, we've got amazing wildlife out there. We've got how the water system works, and then we've got this milfoil problem that we're eradicating. So again, there's lots of good ways to educate the public at this site. And then, of course, we've got some environmental benefits. We want to protect this tree canopy. We have oak trees and old growth forest there. So we want to protect that because that's important for the upland area. Restoring the park is much better than starting from scratch. And so that's better on the environment. Removing the milfoil is important for clear water and to make that water safe. Non-motorized boats are clean. That's a selling point for our grant. And then of course, wanting to make sure that we're creating these opportunities for our community to have social connections, especially now with all of this pandemic separation stuff. It's more important than ever for people to be able to connect and socialize in a safe way. So just so you know, why is American Lake important? Just so you know, it's 1,125 acres. It's the second largest lake in Pierce County with, I think, Alder Lake is the biggest one up there, but it's over 1,000 acres. There's year-round fishing allowed on American Lake. Lots of recreational boating and water sports. But as you know, in Lakewood, a city of lakes, there is very little public access to waterfront. We have American Lake Park, and then we have Harry Todd Park. But other than that, you know, there's very limited public access to water in and around the community. And then of course, it's a very old site, so we're wanting to improve the infrastructure there. And then just public need, just so that you kind of recognize the folks that are living in and around the neighborhood here. This is based on the census tract that's in and around American Lake. And so you can see that the people living here are living below like the state average median income, about the same diversity as state averages in this area. But we have a higher than normal disabled population that could be attributed to the VA hospital, but it's also could be attributed to the older adults that live in and around the area. Their BMI is a little bit higher than the average. And then kind of a big thing is the mortality rate. You know, the average is 692 people per 100,000, and the mortality rate is up higher there. And that could be consistent with some of the health disparities that have been identified in this area by the health department. So just so you know, most of you I think are somewhat familiar, but we have American Lake Park. So you have this upland area here, and then you have the waterfront area here. And the way you get there is through this very steep set of stairs, or you have this path system that is not really a path system that's down there. So this is the upland area, and then the lower area. So public access is really important. And so you can see this trail is actually much steeper than it looks in this picture. I'm going to get a better one, but you can see it just stops, it dead ends, it doesn't meet
ADA.
What's the word I'm looking for, Vito?
ADA accessibility.
Yeah, it doesn't meet the ADA grade and accessibility to get down there. And you can see you're kind of going around. This is where it drops you off on this hard surface and holes. And then here is also where we have all this seating. Look at those benches, Alan, the ones you like. Those, but they're on this little, they're on this like terraced area. And so of course it's not ADA accessible there either. And then here's this steep set of stairs that comes down. This is an old restroom building. It's really hard to access because the front is on a skinny little sidewalk from the parking lot, and there's a sort of a ditch in front of that. We've made tons of modifications in it, either because of vandalism or because you know, building code changes to make it ADA accessible. So there's little faux walls, and it's just really hard to keep clean, and it's just an old building. The shelter, the only shelter we have there currently is connected to the back side of the bathroom. So two things. One is it's hidden from view. So when you're driving in the parking lot and our police department, you know, you can't really see what's going on in there. So that creates some of its own safety from a crime prevention perspective. But also when you're having a party or a birthday party or an event, every single person that's going to the bathroom is walking right through your event. So that's not necessarily a great place for that. And then this is the pictures being taken from the boat launch, but you can see this old retaining wall. This is the upland area. You can see that it's really deteriorated and needs to be repaired. And then this is the bulkhead that goes down along the shoreline, and you can see it's bowing. The fence is old and kind of poking out, and that's on the boat launch side. The boat launch that's on this side of just on the to the left of this area, that is we do have an ADA accessible boat launch, and so we're going to work to kind of clean that area up too. And then this plan that we have does align with all of our city plans. So it meets, you know, aligns with the comp plan, the parks plan, our CIP, as well as our shoreline plan, and also matches the council's strategic vision plan. So many of you know that American Lake Park has been an area that's been used by the community for lots and lots of years. You know, Native Americans utilized this lake in this area for sustenance as they hunted and gathered and wandered through the community. There's historic estates. We have, of course, a castle, but we also have some other estates. There were lots and lots of cabins around the lake. Then there was the seaplane base, which the boat launch was a seaplane base. And then, of course, our public park. So there's been a lot of historic use of this area. And of course, the site is suitable for all kinds of different activities that we want to maintain and keep. And that includes swimming and fishing, picnicking, you know, viewing of nature. A lot of people just go down there to look at the wildlife and the eagles, and then playing and training and social gathering. So here's what's currently there. You can see on the left side of the screen, and you can see it's, you know, there's not a lot of enhancement there. And then this is our master plan. And so I'm going to make it a little easier for you to see. So we're kind of looking at 4 quadrants. We're going to be looking at the entry plaza and the sign. We're going to be looking at the viewing area, the ADA access and shoreline, and then our little boat launch access areas. So I'll show you that in a little bit more detail to make it easier for you to follow. So here's right the parking lot where you come in. So we're going to get rid of the restroom and move it over so that it doesn't sit right in the middle of the entryway. So we create a new access from the parking lot, create kind of a plaza area. So that's a bit of a gathering space. We'll be putting in a restroom that's similar to what we have like at Fort Steilacoom. There'll be independent units versus like girls and a boys. And the reason for that is that it's a lot easier for a handicapped individual or anybody with a mobility issue. It allows us to close some of them. Say if one was broken or something, it doesn't make you have to shut down the whole thing. It just, you can shut down one unit, or maybe during the winter, you only leave one open. If you're a dad and you have your children with you and you don't have to stand outside to hope your little daughter goes in, and same as if you're a mom and your son, you don't want to take your son into the girls' restroom, you know, standing outside the men's room, hoping that your son gets in and out of there. So it really provides an easier way for families to use it. And then regarding any kind of gender identification, you know, just makes it easier for people to use a restroom safely and efficiently. And then we have this existing playground that we've just redone. And then we were fortunate enough that we received a grant from Pierce County to add a shelter. And so what we're going to do is actually install a shelter, another one that's, I'll show you in a little bit, but it's going to be done off of the playground side, sort of towards that side, because it's an area that's really kind of underused and will make a great place to have a separate picnic shelter. So as you go to the Upland area, so here's that, you know, where the stairs go down. So what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in a new picnic shelter. And this is not the one that's going to be basically paid for by the county. This will be one that's here on the edge. So we'll really be able to take advantage of those amazing views from that area. We'll be adding some seating and some interpretive information so that people that don't ever want to get down to the beach can still have a nice way to enjoy the views and enjoy the park and just look down along the beach without having to get down to the beach. And so that will be this area up here, the Upland viewing area. But the main issue that we'll be doing is really getting ADA access. You can see this new pathway that meets ADA grade. You can see here, it says existing shelter, but that will be our new shelter, our Doug Richardson shelter, we're calling it, because he's the one that helped us get the resources. I mean, we're not really naming it after him, but that's will be a shelter that we're doing now versus utilizing grants or future monies for the one that's up by the viewing area. But you'll see this new pathway that'll come down, and that will get you easy access to the shoreline. This will be a pathway. We'll take that little terrace thing out with all the benches. We'll have an access clear across the frontage of the park. So if you have any mobility issues, you'll be able to get all the way down through the front of the park. And then this will be, I should use my little pointer. This area here, this will be pathway, cement pathway that'll get you into the water if you want to get into the water. We're going to create a new opening here so that you can actually get to the ADA accessible boat launch. You'll be able to get to this ADA accessible dock. And also, if you have non-motorized boats, you can pull down, you can slip it through here and get out into the water without having to, you know, get out in the middle of all of the busy boat launch, specifically in the summer. It's very busy area. So these will be new access and new accessibility down here to get you in and around the water and into the water if you want to, as well as the ADA accessible dock and boat launch. And then of course the fixing this retaining wall. This will be the new bulkhead that we showed you that was bowing, and then this will be new retaining wall that will be on that upland area to kind of hold everything up so that it'll be all cleaned up. So that is what we're looking to do. You know, we were able to do the planning for this when we were doing our legacy plan. Fortunately, we were able to do some planning for Wards Lake Park and for American Lake Park. Specifically, while we were doing our legacy plan, we did lots of focus groups and pop-up events and open houses and survey. So we were able to gather good information on the area, as well as information from participants and people who visit the park and people who love the park. So that was part of our planning. We have letters of support. Of course, we're applying for some grants. So we got letter support from different folks who appreciate the ADA access, appreciate the ability to improve the site for future generations. Of course, West Pierce is excited. The police department are excited because being able to get down to the water if there's an emergency is super important. And then just the ability for everybody to be able to access the area. And then this is a bonus. So our Public Works Department is rebuilding Veterans Drive. You know, it's a big, giant project, and that we were able to get a brand new parking lot out of the deal. And there's always, you know, in this busy summer season, there is always not enough capacity in our parking lot, not enough capacity in the boat launch either, but there's not enough capacity here for this little site. So we're adding, I think, about 40 parking spots. And so that's great for the parking lot at the park. And then of course we partner with the fire department. They come down once a year and help do like a boat launch and a swim area cleanup so that we make sure that the area is clean. And then that big long retaining wall that was so ugly, we received a grant and we'll be putting Live Like the Mountain is Out. South Sound Proud will be doing a mural on the back of that. And it's an appropriate spot, obviously, because there's the view. So anyway, that's our American Lake Master Plan update. So
good project, Mary.
Yeah.
What's the tentative schedule?
Well, you know, it all takes money. So we had a little bit of money this year to do some improvements. And in fact, we put some money into it for ADA access improvements, but that was really primarily to look at how we might design it, because we certainly, it's $1 million, you know, everything costs $1 million. This is like $1 million. So we utilized that money to replace the playground, and we'll be doing some installation of the shelter, the new shelter. But the timeline is that if we applied for 2 grants. One was a local parks grant, one was a aquatic lands enhancement grant. If we get both of those grants, it'll be over $1 million, and we can use them to match each other. So, and then I think we're going to ask some state legislative money as well. So the timeline would be if we're successful with the grants and the government doesn't shut down forever, we would be able to get a contract by next July and then move forward from that. So we're still a summer season away from improvements, but having a plan is really important, and you know, that time goes by pretty quick. So, and of course, you know, council approving capital project and all of that. So, but it's in our CIP.
Yeah. And Mary, the estimate is a couple $1 million.
I think it's $1.2 million.
1.2. Okay.
Yeah, or 1.29 or something. So yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Love it. It looks great. Seems like just yesterday we were waiting for 3 years to do the boat launch.
Yeah.
It's now not new anymore.
Yeah.
It is not, but we just upgraded our pay station, so that's all fancy and updated. So, but yeah, so it's pretty exciting. You know, the boat launch is amazing. If any of you remember, you used to have, with the boat launch, we only had really parking here. You had to go down a skinny little road here. That's probably why that bulkhead's so broken. People were running into it all the time. You basically could only really get one boat launch at a time. It was so bad. And now we have a really beautiful boat launch that's super efficient. And we do have 8 ADA accessible launch and dock here. So that's really cool for our community as well, especially with the veterans and people that come down.
Yeah, it's good. Good. Very good. Do you want to move on to director's report, Mary?
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. That's what I hit. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. What am I on here, guys? So I have my little cheat notes behind me. I did. What did I do with that? Oh, that's that one. So what I wanted to do is kind of give you a capital project update. So I'm going to
Okay.
turn my head this way because I printed it, but I forgot to pick it up off the printer. So just as a capital project update, so Springbrook Park expansion, council will be looking at a contract August 17th, I think is the day. We selected Bruce Dees and Associates to work with us on that. You know, they did the initial big project there design. So we're going to be working with them, and they're going to be looking at the area that we didn't improve, and also a Clover Creek restoration, and then how we connect the uplands to that we call the lower Springbrook, which is on the end of 47th Avenue, and then how you get from there all the way up to the transit station. So we received a state allocation of $780,000. So we'll be working on that starting in the fall. We are the gateways, just as a we're putting in gateways, one at Berkeley and one over at the Lakewood and Business Park, I think they're calling it, over in Woodbrook. And we're working with JBLM at the WashDOT as they're doing that WashDOT improvement. So what we're doing is we have to sort of wait till they're done, and then they're designing the traffic circles for the gateways. We are really on top of it by talking to them when they were first just doing preliminary planning. So we're going to be putting gateways in there. We have to wait till they're done. They're going to be putting in the irrigation and the lighting and all the landscaping. But there's a light pole right in the middle of one that they need to finish all their stuff. So we have to wait till that's all done, and then we'll be installing those. So one will probably get installed in the fall, and the other one may not happen until early next year. Chambers Creek Canyon Trail, we received the cost estimates for that. We're a partner, you know, with the county and University Place. It was like $1 million more than what was budgeted. And there's just no way you can make that up by, you know, buying a few more chips. So what we're looking at is talk to the different funding groups. We have the resources to do Phillips Road down to the creek, cross to Kobayashi Park. That was phase 1. So phase 2 is basically getting from Kobayashi and Phillips Road to the 2.5 miles to the end. So we're looking at maybe realigning it. The most expensive part was, of course, on the University Place side. It was boardwalks and trails that were like built into the hillside. And so what we're looking at, and we have such good sections already on the Lakewood side. So what we're looking at is looking at some realignment, because the state doesn't care which side of the creek you're on. We just talked about getting from this end to this end, 2.5 miles. So we're looking at some realignments that can significantly change the cost of that. Because I told them, I said, I don't have any more money. The city doesn't have any more money. We've got money budgeted for it. We don't have any more money. I got other big important projects coming up. This is what we decided to do. So we're working on trying to get to that point.
Mary, when will the first bridge go across from Phillips Road to Kobayashi?
Well, it was supposed to all happen at the same time. So the idea is we're doing all the permitting now. So that still is like probably not till the first part of 2021, because we still have to get all that permitting done. So the goal is probably.
I didn't know the answer.
Yeah, so it takes like for anything in that, because the creek, it's an important creek, it's salmon bearing. There's 2 creeks that meet, you know, it's pretty, it goes down to that area that's heavy, you know, that's, it's important from wetlands and environmentally. And so it's going to take at least a year to get the proper permit. So the permitting isn't our problem. It's paying for, you know, articulated walkways built into a hillside. So we're going to take a look at that and see what we can do with that. Harry Todd Park, we've given the notice to proceed from a fabrication perspective, because they can pre-build the fishing pier and the docks and all of that before, and then we'll give them a notice to proceed the day after Labor Day, which is the 8th or 9th of September, and then we'll get started on that. So we should be done by spring of next year on that, and that's very exciting. Fort Steilacoom Park, Angle Lane South has started. So they're working on the new parking lot. It's all, you know, they've skinned everything so you can really see where the parking lot's going to be, where the trailhead's going to be, where the bathroom's going to be. They're already working on that. Now we're just figuring out, you know, sewer, water, power, fiber, cameras. So we're working on that. And, but that's, Tucci's doing that. Boom, they're on that. Edgewater Park. We, you know, haven't really finalized the master plan because we ran into some hiccups on the end by that neighbor that was concerned about some things. Well, there's just, we inherited from the county and what was recorded and who owns what and street right of ways. It's very complicated. So we're pretty fine with our piece of it, but there's a hunk at the end that now Public Works Engineering is really focusing on because it really is more about right of way and property lines. And so we're just waiting till they get that figured out. And we don't have a lot of resources for that right now. So it's really just getting that master plan finalized. And then we would take a look at how we might fund that once we get that finalized. So we'll more on that. Wards Lake improvements, we're going to give you an update on that because we've applied for some grants on that. We talked about the master plan, I think, several meetings ago, but I've applied for 2 grants on that. One is a legacy plan grant, which is Land and Water Conservation Fund. If any of you guys have read anything about that, there was a very important bipartisan vote that has put like $900 million towards that. It's a national program every year forever. So that Land and Water Conservation Fund is a program that was funded by, like when you drill offshore, you drill in national parks or whatever, it's like gas tax, lease things. And they've been like basically taking all that money and using it for other things. And so they've been working on this for 20 years and they finally got an approved vote just a couple of weeks ago. So we're super excited about that. That should bring more resources to the state that are funded by that. And then we were selected as one project, as you know, to be considered for a national award, which is like $980,000. And if not, and then we also applied for a grant that was like $700 and some thousand. So we can't get both, even though we probably will, because we're so good at this, but we can't get both. So we'll take whichever one is the most money. And then we would just, you know, not take the second one and then somebody else will get them. So that's fine. I'd rather, you know, have 2 options than none. Knock wood, crush fingers. Let's see. The pavilion project, Fort Silicon Park Pavilion, you know, we've been working, trying to get how we're going to get the bathrooms and that warming kitchen done. I got to tell you, people either are not interested in working because it's too small or they've come in with ridiculous bids. We just got a bid. I think that also is going to be going to council. It's well within our budget and we're going to move forward with that. So that'll be happening probably early fall. That'll be coming to council. I think also the August 17th. Sealy Lake, they just did a survey. They did a community survey and surveyed all the people that lived in and around Sealy Lake to get some feedback on safety and access and where they access it and what they think. So that happened just after the 4th of July. So we're going to be telling that survey results and then coming up with stormwater, some stormwater updates, which are boring. Nobody knows what that, you know, it's stormwater. It runs off the road, goes into the pond. Stormwater, what else? Public access and wetlands, some wetland improvements because it's kind of skunky in there. So we'll take that yucky stormwater, clean it up in the wetlands, and then people can access it more safely. So we're working on that. And then the last thing is that service club sign. It's just still sitting there waiting to be installed. Really has to just, we have to get 2 more bids and it's not the highest priority, but it's important. So we're working on that. And that's kind of where we're at with that. That's our capital update.
Good.
Other than that, Summerfest was canceled. The concert series been postponed. More likely it's going to be canceled because we can't gather. We're going to do a drive-in in August, 2 drive-ins in August. We're on that. We're going to get our final planning tomorrow or Thursday. We had some summer day camp. Numbers have been a little bit low, but we did provide summer day camp at the senior center since that's all canceled, since they're the more vulnerable populations. The farmers market is kicking it. I mean, my gosh, we are breaking sales records every single week. And people are really loving being at the park. It's set up in such a fashion that you can, lots of parking and that you can easily social distance, and most people are wearing masks. So that's good. So yeah, so it's rocking. And that's busy.
Yeah. Hey, Mary, I saw that we had the alum treatment done here a few weeks back. And how was that? Was it successful?
Yes, it was very successful. And that was at Wahop Lake. They did 2 treatments. So they did one in the spring, or they did one, I think it was May or June, when nobody was at the park. The park was closed. And then they did the second one is second week of July, and they are really happy with the results. It seems to have worked really well. Of course, our more critical folks are still wanting to test the water, and everything seems to be blue and clear. And so, you know, it did what it was supposed to do, and we haven't seen any negative repercussions from that. So it had good supervision, and they got in, they got out, really good to work with. So yeah, so the lake is beautiful. If you haven't been down there, it's like going to the tropics. It's crystal.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it.
For a while, you know, a little green, but that's what it does, and then it clears off. So, and we didn't find any cars in the bottom of it. So
good. Good. That's good.
We didn't know what we were going to find. We were a little nervous about that, but so far everything seems to be clear. So
that's good. That's real good. Any other anything else, Mary?
That's pretty much all for right now. We are starting to work on budget as a city. So, you know, the city's been really. The city manager has been very, very hopeful that we're going to get the second wave of funding. As you know, the county received a ton of money for CARES, the first round of support, but none of that was really for cities and towns. It was really all for small business, housing, nonprofits. And so then the city received some funds, and we were able to distribute that to some local business and for some, I think for some housing support, as well as just some nonprofits to do like the food banks and communities and schools and the YMCA, and to do some work with the community. But none of that could go to like deal with cities and towns and revenue shortfalls. So we're really hoping for that second round of funding, because otherwise the city's going to be $6 million short. So you can't get to $6 million by buying less toilet paper. And so we're going to have to really look seriously at what we will look like if we have to cut that. But the city manager is very optimistic, and, you know, they are working on something. They haven't come to agreement with it, but it's close. So fingers crossed. And then we'll probably be bringing you at least one budget, maybe 2, one being what it looks like if all things kind of go as normal. And number 2 would be, and we've done exercise every year since I've been here, and I've been here 19 years now. You know, what it could look like if we have to make major cuts and changes. So, and we'll get to that point when we get to that point. We'll share that with you. I think that's on our, let's see, October-ish. I think we'll start talking in October.
Yeah.
Once the council makes some decisions as to what gets presented. It gets presented. City manager has to provide a balanced budget to council October 1st. That's the law. And so if we don't have resources to have it be balanced, we can't go in the red, then it's going to be with what we have and what we anticipate coming in. And we have a very, very conservative finance director, Ta. She's amazing. That's the reason why we have been doing so well the last few years. She's amazing, very conservative. She doesn't monkey with the numbers. She doesn't put smoke and mirrors out there. She's really straightforward, and it's been really good for the city. It's an honest budget. And again, if we're not where we're going to get any relief, we can't pretend there's going to be relief coming. It will be a balanced budget based on, you know, whatever the world looks like September 29th. So.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Any board member comments? Sylvia, Alan, anything? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Okay. Sylvia, you want to second that?
Sylvia, give us a thumb. Yeah.
You did. Okay, we're adjourned.
All
Hey,
right.
Mary, would you stick around?
You bet. Thank you, everybody.
It's good to
Thank
see
you.
y'all.
Bye.
Mhm.